Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Sean again, and I've had some calls and some emails from you folks over the last couple weeks, making me feel that I need to do the following, and that is kind of give an overview for the week and what I see as the critical elements, making sure that you see the same critical elements, and hopefully in the process would alleviate or alleviate first of all stress, but then allow for potential follow-up conversations with me. And by the way, I've had several of you reach out to me. We've had great conversations. Honestly, if I was teaching face-to-face, it would be expected. In my other online courses, it would be expected, and it happens. And so I just want to reinforce that. Don't hesitate to give me a call. I think a half hour together might be well worth the several hours that you might be taking to try to find an understanding of information. So real quick, let's take a look at this week. And so I just kind of want to walk through the week to make sure we're on the same page. And yes, I do have it in my version, which is editable, so please ignore those kind of elements. And actually here, let's just kind of walk through. We have our introductory video, and that kind of, a minute or two just kind of get us started, which is great. And then I offer some brief reflections. Now, they're not required. You're not even required to watch this. I hope you do. But it's just kind of getting us thinking about the social teachings of the church and what we do in our work. But again, it's not required and there's no work related to this. The third page is a reading that we had back in week 8, and here it is again. It's pages 12 through 47. Now, this is a very long document, but again, 12 through 47, which are basically the recommendations. If you go down here, they're the recommendations of how to use evidence-based practices when it comes to math. Now, I don't want to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it. This is a resource you might download and actually put to the side. What, Sean? What are you talking about? Well, the reality is these are recommendations when it comes to math, Tier 2, Tier 3. If you're focused in on reading, you're focusing on writing, you're focusing on another academic intervention, and math is not your primary. One thought with your busy life would be to download this and put this off to the side for a future reading when it's very relevant to you. Why, Sean? Because I have no assignment related to math this week. I'll reinforce that as I go along. But please understand it's only pages 12 to 47, and I broke this up across 2 weeks in hopes that this might be a little bit more digestible. So, if you break this up, we have about, let's say, 10 to 50, which is, of course, extra. That's 40, some 40 pages. If we did 20 pages a week, maybe a little bit more manageable. And again, they're recommendations what to be doing. Now, this is a required read, and there's 6 pages here. And these 6 pages, as you can see, are basically overviewing tier interventions for math. The last page, as we'll scroll down here, is actually a quarter of a page and then references. So really it's about 5 1/4 pages. And it's just a general overview of what to be doing when it comes to thinking about math. The second one is really a 2.5 pager. There's 1, there's 2, and then a half page, if even a half page, and then some references. Again, it's specifically to tier intervention, this one in respect to tier 2. And then finally, this third one, it's, It is a tier 3, of course. I was trying to look at the number of pages, but we'll just scroll down and take a look at those together. You'll see again, it's not the full page, a lot of white section here, and it's an overview of what we know about tier intervention for math. Now, is there an assignment related to these 2 required readings, the IES practice guides and the RTI networks? No, there's not. Do I require it to be read? I do, but there's no follow-up in respect to math for this week. So if you wanted to print these off or download them and save them, which I would recommend, put them in a folder, put them in a Google Drive folder that you create saying, these are math interventions. When I need to think about math interventions, it may be this summer, maybe next fall. Those are there. Those are very good readings, I would suggest, to better understand Tier 2 and Tier 3 evidence-based elements. So again, I can't reinforce this enough. They are not required. Yes, they are, but they're not required to complete your assignment. So if I've got family, if I've got work, I've got hobbies, I've got church, I've got this list of life going on, and I can't give any of it up, then in terms of flexibility with us, please understand the assignment here are not directly related to the readings or the presentation. And let's go to the presentation. The presentation, well, these are actually additional resources. These are not required. These are things I thought might be helpful, lesson plans and things of that nature. but again, they're not required, so I'm not even going to discuss those. There's a 15-minute presentation about word problems. I think it's a very valid presentation because word problems, along with fractions and decimals, are the primary challenges for students with disabilities and struggling learners. So I wanted to make sure you understood some relevancy, what we know about those elements, and give you a brief and broad overview. Now, if you get into what the assignment is the capstone experience. The assignment is not directly related to the readings for math or the presentation unless you're doing math as an intervention. If you're doing math as an intervention, I hope the resources I've given you are moving you very quickly along with evidence-based practices that yes, you will need to look at some evidence in respect to the research. I'll get to that in just a moment. But if you're doing math interventions, I hope the last 2 weeks have moved you along tremendously along when it comes to the interventions to use. The IES Practice Guide gives you a series of, I think, 8 recommendations. Each one of those are evidence-based practices. So you don't need to do the searching. It's right there for you. You just need to connect it over into some research, which the IES Practice actually gives you a reference to, and I'd be happy to walk you through that in terms of that clarity. Now, if I'm not doing math and I go through week 9, I might put those readings off to the side. I might watch that presentation for 15 minutes. And then I'm going to go focus in on what Sean wants me to do. And what Sean wants me to do is right out of the capstone assignment. You need to find in the capstone assignment evidence-based practices. So I've brought language from the capstone. I've modified it a bit to make it into assignment. And basically tried to help you in creating a table. Now let me go over here. I'm going to go back to our home. And I'm going to go here real quick. I'm going to scroll down here to our capstone assessment. And I'm going to scroll down here for just a second. And I'm going to come down here to where it says instructional interventions. Okay? Last week you needed to think about your problem. And some of you called me about your problem and said, Sean, I need assistance on the problem. And we've walked through it. But the part this week I want to make sure I'm reinforcing is right here is an assignment, evidence-based interventions. And you need to come up with the research of the literature. So this week, what have I done? This week, when it comes to the assignments for week 9, I'm asking you to find 3 articles that are evidence-based, and I simply want to tease out the elements. Why? Well, because hopefully what you'll find is the intervention. Here we go, the intervention. So yes, I want you to know how they measured the impact, but more importantly, what were the students involved? Hopefully they're your type of students, meaning that they're primary or elementary or middle. Hopefully they're struggling readers if you have struggling readers, struggling in math if you have struggles in math, etc. And then you need to look at the outcome. And then of course provide me a table. And that table hopefully will break down for you an understanding of the intervention, but also what goes into the intervention, which will get to the solution you need to use with your students that you're already potentially using or coming up with using soon. And of course, that's this element here, the fact that the impact for the intervention strategy or solution that hopefully you'll be using with your own students. Now I'm going to create a second video in just a moment. And that second video is going to be very specific about the element of what this could align with when it comes to your problem and how to go about doing that type of research. This video tried to emphasize the fact that for this week, while there are readings, and I hope those readings, if you've done half of it in week 8, you do half of it in week 9, my hope those readings will take you no more than 60 to 90 minutes. If you throw in the presentation, that will take another 15 minutes because that's all it takes. That would take you to, let's say, 2 hours. And then, yes, in a face-to-face class, we would meet for about 3 hours. So now we have an hour to start doing our assignment, which I expect would take another maybe hour or so, so maybe 2.5 hours to find those 3 articles, organize them, and make sense of them for your problem. And I'm giving very, very conservative here. I think it would take less, but I want to make sure you understand what is actually being required. The last comment I'm going to make here, and this is such an important one, if you're saying, Sean Balderdash, this is not happening, this is taking me 10 hours a week, call me, text me, let's talk. I have a technical term for it. You're looping. Yes, that's my term. But what I'm talking about here is that you're taking more time than's necessary, more time that's expected. So you're probably coming up with something where you're just getting a problem and you're solving the problem, trying to resolve the problem, trying to resolve the problem, and you're looping, you're circling, you're circling, you're circling. And you step away and you say, I just spent 4 hours on this, and Jiminy Cricket, this is too much time. And I can't handle this. And I would agree. And this is where you and I would need to, if we were teaching face-to-face, you would touch base with me and say, Sean, I'm doing the following. And I'd offer you some strategies. We're not meeting face-to-face. So this is where a call, a text, a Zoom would help tremendously. And I'm finding with your peers that reach out, we are working through it. All right, I hope this is helpful. I hope you've watched this. I'm going to create a second video now that walks you through how I would address this week's assignment with some resources. All right, I hope you watch the second one as well.